Hey guys, welcome to another weekly focus. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys the trades I had for last week or this week, and I'll show you guys the opportunities I'm looking out for, let's say for next week. So let's pull this up. All right, so let's start with gold. So I'm in on a gold sell, so I'm gonna show you guys right here. So I had this sells on gold, and the intention right here was just to take prices to the downside, and we get to this recent low, and I wait for, let's say, an inability for sellers to go through this area, then we can take prices to the upside. So this didn't happen, and right now price came really close to my stop loss, and then it came back to the entry point. So when we do the focus thing, you'll see price came close and then it came back to an area like this. So at a point like this, price can just decide to go all the way to 3,000, or it gives us, let's say, another sell before the buyers step in again. So looking at this, there's a high possibility this might be a loser, and again, that's fine. So this is what is happening on gold, and let's look at NAS. So I had one position on gold that was a sell, and then on NAS, I'm going to show you guys. So if you remember, I did reattempt the buys on NAS100. So the previous one was a loss, so I had this buys and it was a loss. So I did reattempt the buys on NAS100. So I was going off of this trend line right here, and I had this inability for prices to go through this trend line, and this looked to me like a range thing right here. So I was trying to buy from the bottom of the range part right here. So you're looking at this, I had an entry right here, and I was expecting prices to go all the way to 25,000. So I got stopped out on this. So if you look at this one, and because I wasn't really confident with the entries, I went in with 0.25%. So I didn't go in like with full size on this. I went in, I was risking just 0.25%. So that was a loss right there. So let's see. And then later on, so once I took the loss on this pair, so price took me out. So I had an initial buy from here and I got stopped out. So immediately after the stop out thing, I was still looking at this area, bottom of the range. Price just spiked down, still within this trend line thing right here, and I was expecting the buyers to take off from an area like this. So I went in with like full size on this 1%, and the same thing, I was expecting prices to go all the way to 25,000, and this stopped me out, and price tested 20,000. So if you look at this right now, this is the -1 on this pair. So I'm just gonna put this trade close on -1 because I didn't update this. Yeah, so this is it. So it's a -1 on this as well. So just looking at this position on NAS100, I think I'm down maybe 2.25% on this already. So that's it for the trade recap, and let's take some time and look at the DXY and see what's cooking up for the other pairs this coming week. Alright guys, so here's the DXY on the daily time frame, and here's what I have to say. So if you've realized most of your technicals, like if you're just relying on technicals, or if you're a pure technical trader just like myself, you're probably going through this period where your technicals are not holding true. Like you analyze something technically and it just violates. So that's very okay. You need to understand what's happening currently. So the US has a new president. Trump is in power right now. So he's like, there's a lot he's going to do that's going to influence the market, and it's going to cause, let's say, violations of structures you've been looking at, and structures have been holding for a very long time. So you're looking at things like certain psychological levels. Price is just going to go through these areas without even testing it, and that's just because fundamentally there is a lot that's happening right now, and it's going to show you on the technical chart as well. You're going to see these difficulties on the chart. You're going to see certain levels not holding. You're going to see certain trend lines not even holding as well, and that's fine. So it's a period we have to go through. So we're looking at, let's say, 4 years, and we have to go through this period. It's happened before, so it's not new. So there's a lot of things you'll see technically that's not going to hold, certain structures, certain patterns, and you just have to understand fundamentally there's a lot happening. So this is a period where if your fundamental analysis is going to be like advantageous to you. So let's look at the DXY, and this is what I was expecting on the daily time frame, and it didn't hold through. So I was expecting prices so last week we was right here. So I was expecting a halt around an area like this, and so prices can then move all the way to 110. And again, as I told you, technically this is the structure I've been looking at. So technically this is a setup I've always been playing with, and this is a period where fundamentally price is not giving you this, like, price is not giving you what you're really expecting. So I was expecting prices to move to the upside, giving us a pullback but not dropping impulsively. I was expecting a pullback like this and then price moving again to the upside. So while waiting for this pullback, the intention was, as the DXY starts to sell, I wasn't expecting a massive sell on the DXY. As the DXY starts to sell, we should on the other hand see buys from the other pairs, NAS100, S&P500, US30 and gold. And that's why I had the buys on NAS100, because I knew with this sales coming in, I can then take the buys on those other pairs. And that's why I'm saying fundamentally something else is happening. So there's just a lot happening fundamentally. So you're seeing the DXY selling impulsively, but you're not seeing the other pairs. You're not seeing NAS buying aggressively. You're not seeing the S&P buying aggressively. You're not seeing US30 buying aggressively, and even gold is not buying aggressively. So just fundamentally it's not aligned with what's happening technically. So that's why you're having all these discrepancies. And again, it's very okay. You just need to understand there's different phases in the market. So it doesn't mean your system is not working. It doesn't mean your setups are not working. So don't switch anything. So this is it. So now on the DXY, so once we had this massive sales coming in on the DXY, and I wasn't comfortable with these massive sales because I was expecting prices to hold around an area like this, giving us this buys and an inability, so we can look at prices going again to the upside. So because of this, I decided to step on to, let's say, to the weekly time frame. So I'll look at the weekly time frame and the monthly, because once we start having this difficulty on lower time frames like the daily, I like looking at higher time frames just to see what price is doing and the levels price might decide to test. So I'll look at this on the monthly time frame as well. So I hardly come to the monthly time frame, but if you look at this structure on the monthly time frame, you can also understand why the DXY is selling. So you're looking at this movement right here. So we had an impulsive move right here. We had a pullback consolidation thing, and you can look at it as like a range thing. You had another movement to the upside. So this is the same structure we've been looking at on the daily time frame, but on the monthly time frame it just gives you a better understanding. So you look at this move right here, you had an impulsive move. So this is a higher crater right here, and we had, let's say, a range thing right here. So there's certain things price can do. We could see the sellers coming back to take out this area. So you're just testing it because it's a range thing right here. So you can see the sellers coming back. I'm going to make this cleaner. So you're looking at this piece right here. You have a range in here. Let's see. So you're looking at this piece right here. You have a range right here, and you have another range right here. So this is on the monthly time frame, and it's not different from what we've been looking at the daily time frame. So what you can see or what you can expect is for prices to push to the downside, testing this area. So you see prices pushing to the downside, testing this lows, and even testing this trend line thing, just so we can see prices moving to the upside. Or you get prices coming here, there's an inability for prices to move to the upside, and you get a violation. So looking at it from the monthly time frame, now I understand why you're having this aggressive sales on the daily time frame. And again, if it's time with what's happening fundamentally, that's okay, but I'm not paying attention to what's happening fundamentally. I know there's a lot happening fundamentally, but I want the charts to tell me what it's trying to do. And in a situation like this, I was having difficulty just understanding what's playing out or what's happening on the daily time frame. So looking at it from the monthly time frame, this right here is my buyers. So I'm still expecting, or right now I'm expecting the DXY to sell more, just so we can have a test of an area like this, and not just testing it, because sometimes price is going to wick through this area. And I'm going to show you guys. Let's see, if you look at an area like this, so this right here looks like a range thing as well. So you're looking at this as a range. So you see price coming back to wick through this area. So you're looking at this piece right here, and price wicked out of it. So this area right here, price wicked out of this area, and then you have the buyers again to the upside. So you might see price coming down, and it's the same thing. So you see price taking out this area, so it just wicks out of these areas. So you could see prices push into the downside, giving you this wick right here. It just takes all those stop losses and stuff like this, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So this is what I'm looking on the daily time frame. So there's a high possibility that something like this can happen. So if you clean this, let's clean this. So once you take this out, you can then step down to the daily time frame again and ask yourself, is there a psychological level you can work with? Is there a trend line you can work with? So let's move back to the daily time frame. So now this makes it completely easy. So the analysis I had here, I'm going to take this out. So let's take this out right here. So on the daily time frame, so how is price then moving? So you have this space, we're done with this already, and this is fine. Yeah. So how is price then moving? So price is giving us highs and lows. So you had this high right here, you had the low. Price is giving us a lower high and a lower low. So normally you should expect a pullback and then a movement to the downside, because that's how price is moving now. And this is this structure is what I wasn't expecting. So I wasn't expecting prices to pull back or giving us this structured movement right here. I was expecting an inability around an area like this and for prices to move to the upside. So currently, so I just have to deal with what price is giving me. And if you look at this, you can put a trend line just to track this movement thing right here. So let's do something like this. So this is on the daily time frame. So I'm going to put this on the daily time frame. So this is what we're looking on the daily time frame. So price is still moving to the downside, and it's very difficult for you to change it. And it's the same thing with what happened right here. So you had an impulse, you had a pullback, you had an impulse, you had a pullback, impulse, pullback, impulse, pullback. So right now what you have here, and again you have this, you had an impulse, you had a pullback, you had an impulse, you had a pullback, there's an impulse, you're expecting a pullback for prices to move again to the downside. So remember, there are certain things you've looked at on the monthly time frame. This is what you're looking on the monthly time frame. Hold on, take this out, the monthly and the weekly. So this is what you're looking at on the monthly time frame. So on your monthly time frame, you have this impulse correction thing, but you're still expecting prices to correct like this, and you can then see prices moving to the upside, or you get a crash and you see prices moving to the downside. So because of this, there's a high possibility price is going to test this lows on the DXY. So we should expect, let's say, we should expect the dollar to have more selling pressure coming into next week. So when you step down to the daily time frame, what you're looking for on the daily time frame is just a trend line thing you can work with. So I'll take this trend line out for now, just so we can, I don't want to put like too many trend lines on my chart. It makes it completely dirty. So you're looking at this, and how is price moving? Price is taking out this lows. So price took out this low right here, and I'm suspecting price to take out this low right here as well. So with this movement right here, you should expect, let's say, a pullback to an area like this, and then you can see price selling again to the downside. So this is what I'm expecting on the DXY. Just a pullback to that trend line, and then you see prices coming to the downside. Now, if the DXY starts pulling back to this area, there's some strength coming in for the dollar. So if this happens, so if you see the DXY pulling back to this trend line, if something like this happens, then you're expecting those other pairs like US30, NAS, S&P, and maybe gold to sell or to consolidate. So you might expect some selling pressure on those pairs, or you expect a consolidation, like price is not just going to move. So if those other pairs are geared to move to the upside and the DXY starts buying, and because you don't like, and the DXY starts buying, so you're expecting the sales. If the sales are not coming, then you should expect a consolidation. So price is just going to consolidate on weight, and once the DXY starts selling again, then those buys on those other pairs can kick in. So this is what I'm looking on the daily time frame. And again, you can step down to lower time frames, the 8-hour time frame and stuff like that. It's really not going to change it. So this is just me looking at prices from this higher time frame thing. So this is what I was looking at last week. So I'm going to take this out, step back to the daily, put this on the 8-hour time frame as well. So let's see, put this on the 8-hour time frame, put this on the hourly. So let's step down to the 8-hour time frame right here. Check this out. All right guys, so here's what I'm looking on the on the 8-hour time frame, and again it's still the DXY. So what psychological levels are we playing with? So we had 110, so price didn't really go through 110. So where is price headed to? Price should be headed to 100 flat, which is the psychological level right here. So wait for a pullback and wait for prices to sell. So that's my analysis right now, the DXY, and I'm gonna keep it this way. So if price can get to an area like this right here, then we could expect sales on the DXY. So this is what I'm expecting on the DXY, sales on the DXY like this. So now we'll wait for this temporal buyers to come in. So wait for the buyers to come in, which can just be like temporal buys. Once price gets to an area like this, then you're waiting for those sales to come in. So that's what I'm looking at on the DXY. That's the 8-hour time frame. Normally I'll go to like the 4 hours, the 1 hour and stuff like this, but because we had to look at the monthly time frame, so look at this right here, because we had to look at the monthly time frame just to understand what's happening, there's no need for me heading all the way to like the 4-hour time frame, because you can look at this on the weekly. Once you look at this on the weekly, it's the same thing. There's been an inability for prices to go through 110. I'm expecting prices to come all the way to 100 flat, and if this happens, we'll be testing the psychological level. There's a possibility for us to test this trend line. You look at it on the daily time frame. Now, is there a trend line you can work with? And I just put one like right now. So prices making lower highs, lower lows, lower highs and lower lows. So you're expecting the pullback thing to the trend line, and you're expecting further sales. What levels are you working with? 110 and 100 flat. So same thing, you can step down to the 8-hour time frame, and this is what we're looking at on the 8-hour time frame. So that's my analysis on the DXY, and let's see if this aligns to what's happening on other pairs and if we can take trades on those other pairs. All right guys, so here's US30. So remember what's happening on the DXY. This is very important. So I'm going to pay attention to what's happening on the DXY because it's going to influence a lot on those other pairs. So you're looking at US30 right here. This is US30 on the daily time frame. Now the first question is there any psychological level we can work with? Is there a trend line we can look at? So looking at this based off of those principles, you had price moving to the upside, there was a pullback, price moving to the upside. There was an inability for prices to go through 45,000. You had sellers coming in, another inability for prices to go through 45,000, and we had a violation of this trend line. So just looking at this, you're expecting prices to then sell all the way to like 40,000, an inability, and then you see prices moving again to the upside. Now this is going to be very tricky. So when you look at this, you're expecting prices to move to the downside, like you're expecting the sellers to keep selling all the way to 40,000. But I need you guys to look at this pairs, and at the same time we pay attention to what's happening on the DXY. So if the DXY starts moving to the upside, you should expect, let's say this pair like US30, you should expect this sales to continue on US30. And if the sales do not continue on US30, then you could expect some consolidation thing. So you could see price just consolidating around an area like this. So that's a possibility. Then later on, you might see price moving to the upside, or you see price moving to the downside. So it's at a very crucial point, and this is something you'd really need to pay attention to, because fundamentally everything is just messed up right now. It's not aligning with the technicals. So you really have to be careful what you're looking at technically and what the fundamentals is telling you as well. So you need to wait, like your timing has to be on point. So watch what's happening on the DXY, and then you look at these other pairs. So now we've had a violation of this trend line. Once you have a violation of this trend line, it doesn't mean the buyers have come to an end. And this is something I like explaining, so I can show you guys right here. So if you look right here, on lower time frames, this was a trend because price was making highs and lows. Price was making highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and then lows. Then you had a violation. So a violation doesn't mean the buyers have come to an end, because it could just mean like it's just telling you there's a temporal sell coming in, there is a pause, prices going lower just to get a better price, better discount, and later on you see prices moving again to the upside. So it's the same thing right here. You've had this movement to the upside, there's been this inability, and you've had a violation of this trend line. So this is the trend line we're looking at. So there's minor structures you can look at, but if you look at a major trend line thing, this is it right here. So a violation of this trend line doesn't mean the buyers have come to an end. Yes, sellers are currently in control, sellers are dominating right now, but this could be temporary sales, just like what happened right here. Then you can see buyers stepping in again, pulling back, and you see prices moving all the way to the upside. So when I'm looking at something like this, I'll pay attention to what's happening on the DXY. I need this pairs to align properly. So if I have to do buys again on US30, I need to wait for the DXY to complete this pullback, and once the DXY gets ready to sell like this, then I'll head back to a pair like US30 and look for the buying opportunities on this pair. So let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame and see what's happening. So I did attempt the buys on this. Now this is what I was showing you guys last week. If I had to take the buys, so let's take this out. I didn't do the buys on this, so let's take this out and let's just look at how price is moving. So you can look at this using trend lines. So let's keep this trend line on the daily, for example. Yep, let's keep this on the daily. So look at what's happening right here. So how is price moving currently? So if you extend this trend line thing right here, so sellers are currently in control, and if you're looking for a possibility to buy the US30, so this is what you want to see. So you're looking for opportunities. Let's say you want prices to come back here, you want to see this, you want to see this violation, and so you can take buying opportunities off of a pair like this. So while waiting for this to happen, while waiting for this trend line to get violated, you get a test and then a movement thing to the upside. If you get a pullback, so let's see, you get a pullback to an area like this, then you can take sales again to the downside. So this right here is a possibility. So if the DXY starts moving to the upside and you see, let's say, this selling opportunity, and you can look at this on lower time frames, because now this is going to be the easiest thing to do. You're looking at something like this, maybe 1:3, 1:4. You're looking for selling opportunities off of this. Now you're not selling based off the trend line thing. You're not just selling because price is bouncing off of the trend line. You're looking for reactions around the trend lines. You're looking for inability around the trend line. And personally, this is not a setup I'm going to trade. So personally, this is not a sell I'm going to take, but I'm just showing you, if you really want to take the sells, then you can go for this, and I'll show you what I'm looking for, like what I would like to trade. So this is a possibility. So price can sell, you can see price moving back, pulling back to an area like this, and you see the sells. So I'm not going to trade this, and I'm going to show you. Let's see, I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. So let's step back to the daily right here. So this is what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. So yes, we had a violation of this piece right here, but there's still a possibility price can test an area like 45,000, and again an inability for prices to go through, then we can see the sales coming in. So I'm expecting, or I'm looking for the swing. So I trade the swing moves, and I'm not trading this minor structures. So I'm looking for buying opportunities again to the upside, and this might look a little bit stupid because you have a violation of a trend line, and at the same time I'm looking for buying opportunities. And as I told you, look at the structure we're playing with. So you had this massive buying pressure thing, and you've had a minor violation thing. So do you think this violation is going to take prices all the way to this area? Like, this is very small compared to what has been happening. So the buyers have been over a very long time, and I think this is like November. You're looking at this November 2024, the price started buying, and now we're, let's say, March. So we've had a violation thing. It doesn't mean the buyers have come to an end. It's a temporary move, it's a hold, and price is probably just going lower to get a better discount. So you can see prices moving again to the upside. So that's it for me. So my intention on US30 is still to go for the buys, but then I need to wait for the DXY to complete this pullback. An inability for the DXY to move. I'm expecting the DXY to sell further. Once this happens, I'll revisit a pair like US30 and look for buying opportunities off of this again. So Let's put this on the 8-hour time frame, and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at one more time. So this is a possibility right here. If you're trading lower time frames, this trend line on the 8-hour time frame is something you can look at on the 15-minute time frame and you take those sales. But I'm not really focused on this. So what I'm expecting on this pair, let's say you get a violation, once you get a pullback, and this is it. So this is what I'm paying attention to, something like this. So I'll keep both opportunities open, just so you look at it. If you're playing with the swings, that's what I'm playing with right there. So I'm looking at this just all the way to 45,000 because price hasn't really gone above 45,000. So that's what I'm looking at. So price hasn't really gone above 45,000. So this area right here could be the first point of concern for me, 45,000. So that's it. So that's my trade thing right there, and I'm just gonna sit with and just see what's happening on the DXY, see what's happening on other pairs, and then I'll look for my opportunities on this pair. So if you're trading on lower time frames, so let's say the 4-hour time frame is your highest time frame. If the 4-hour time frame is your highest time frame, you can pay attention to this piece right here, impulse correction, so you can take sales. An inability for this to happen, I'll make this clean. So let's see, there's this impulse thing. There's an impulse correction, impulse, you went for this correction. An inability for prices to go through this area. You see this bridge, you wait for sellers to try one more time, an inability again, then you're looking for the buyers, or you're looking for buyers off of an area like that. So that's what I'm looking on US30. It's nothing really complex, it's like the same thing we've been looking at, just that currently fundamentally price is just doing something crazy, and it makes it really difficult for the technicals to hold. So that's my analysis on US30. I'm still expecting buys on US30, but then I need to wait and see what's happening on the DXY, just so we can align what's happening on US30 with what's happening on the DXY. All right guys, so let's look at the next pair. All right, so here's NAS100 on the daily time frame, and if you guys remember, like from the trade recap thing, I had my buys on NAS100. I did attempt the buys on NAS100 and it didn't go through. So you're looking at this, let's say, I'm gonna zoom out just so you can see what we're playing with. Or let's put this on the weekly time frame, it makes it completely easy. So look at the structure we're playing with on the weekly time frame. So impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction. So I was expecting price to get to an area like this. So once price got to an area like this, I was expecting the pivot point to be set, because we had another pivot point set right here, and we had this piece right here. So let's see, we had this piece right here. So I was looking at these areas as pivot points, and I was expecting prices to move to this trend line thing. You get a reaction, you get an inability, and you see prices moving to the upside. Now pay attention with what happened here. I did attempt the buys, I think 3 times. So, and I had losses all 3 times, and that's putting me around minus 2.25%, because on one of the positions I went in just with 0.25%, not a full hit on that one. So look at this. The intention with this again is, if price is moving to the upside, the psychological level we're working with right here is 20,000 and 25,000. So price went through 20,000, and this is the first time we're really testing this, like really testing it. So you can look at this and say this was a test, but I'm gonna look at this right here on the weekly break, test, and we're expecting prices to move all the way to 25,000. Now because this is happening on the weekly time frame, sometimes when you look at this on the daily time frame, it's very difficult for you to get the timing correct. So I'm going to take this out because it's a loss thing, and let's take this out and look at this. So why are you looking at this? How do you get involved in a situation like this? And I've taken 3 losses on this already, so trust me, if price presents itself again, giving me an opportunity to buy, I'm still gonna buy. So what's my primary bias on NAS100? Because if you look at what's happening on the DXY, the impulse, like those sales on the DXY, you had to see a counter move on pairs like this, like NAS100, because it's negatively correlated. So if you're expecting the sales, or once the sales kicked in on the DXY, you had to see NAS moving to the upside, but this didn't happen. So again, I'm telling you, fundamentally price is doing something else, and technically price is just showing you something else. So there's a lot that's happening fundamentally with all this political powers and stuff like this. So it's influencing what you're looking at on the chart, because normally an impulsive move like this on the DXY, look at this move on the DXY, this is crazy. An impulsive move like this on the DXY, you should see a follow through on other pairs like NAS100 with price moving to the upside, which is just how price correlates, this negative correlation. But then price does not correlate 100% of the time. So there's certain periods when you see the DXY moving to the downside, and you see these other pairs moving to the downside as well. And that's like, during periods like this, you need to ask yourself what's happening fundamentally. Now you can go read about it, go look at the news and everything, and you understand what's happening fundamentally. There's a lot of tension with most political powers right now, so it's really influencing a lot when you look at your charts technically. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Where is price headed to? And this is not that difficult. I'm still going to stick with my bias. So you had price going through 20,000, you've had a test of 20,000. Not only this, you've had price testing this trend line thing, and it's very okay. So occasionally you get a spike, price gives you a test of a trend line, and it gives you a test of the psychological level. An inability for prices to go through this area, there's just one thing that's certain: an inability for this to happen, you see price doing something like this, and we headed all the way to 25,000. Now this is the beauty of this stuff. I've taken 3 losses already, so I still have my eyes on this. So even when price decides to move to the upside, because I've struggled and I haven't switched anything, I haven't switched my bias, I haven't switched my system, I haven't switched anything, even when price decides to move to the upside, I'm gonna hop in again, because I'm trading what I see, and I'm not switching anything. So I'm just trading what I see and not what people are saying or what is happening out there. So what is price showing me? Where is price headed to? Price is headed to 25,000. How is price going to get to 25,000? You can get an impulse, you get a correction, and then you join the movement thing. So look at this piece right here, and this is on the daily time frame. So let's take this out and just play with this and see. So you're looking at this piece right here. So same thing, you can look at this as a consolidation, which is what I was looking at. You're looking at this as a consolidation on the daily time frame. So price gave you this impulsive move right here, and after this you had your consolidation thing, and you've had this spike right here, which is very okay. From here I'm expecting prices to move to the upside, because this consolidation thing just tells you there's a lot of orders, like the big players are trying to pile orders in, and once they're done piling these orders, it's very okay for you to see this spike occasionally, taking out certain stop losses, and then you see prices moving to the upside. So here's my analysis on NAS100, and I'm going to keep it simple like this. Keep it very simple. We've gone through this area, we've gone through this consolidation. Let's keep this on the chart. So where is price most likely going to head to? Price has to move all the way to 25,000. So an inability for this prices to come down, we could see prices headed to 25,000. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? I'll show you how to get involved in a situation like this, but looking at this on the daily time frame, that's what you're expecting. So let's keep this on the daily. So let's now keep this even on lower time frames. So I'll head down to like the 8-hour time frame, and I'll show you what I'm looking at. So on the 8-hour time frame, you should see, like normally, let's do this. So on the 8-hour time frame, so what you're looking at normally, so this is the attempt thing I had right here. So I was attempting the buys and it didn't go through. So what you should look at normally on the 8-hour time frame is a trend line. So how do you play with a trend line in a situation like this? You put a trend line right here, and this is your best bet right now, because I've tried this buys 1, 2, 3 times already with the same system and the same setup I've been looking at, and it didn't hold through. So in a situation like this, what I'm waiting for is for this selling pressure to come to an end. So if you look at this on lower time frames, you'll realize price is making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and lower highs. There's a lower low, there's a lower high every time. So this is how price is moving. So price made a lower low and there was a high right here. Price has made another low. So what you're expecting is for a violation. You see price coming back testing. There's this inability, and from there you can start buying this pair again to the upside. So all you have to do now is wait for the DXY to align properly, because currently the DXY looks like it's moving to the upside before the sales can come in. So it's not going to be wise for you to buy this right now, because you might buy this and price comes back again, takes out this area, keeps manipulating around an area like this, and then you see price is moving to the upside. So for you to avoid something like this and just avoid unnecessary losses, wait for the DXY to give you this buys once it's ready to sell, and then you can come back to pairs like this. At the point, at that time you might see NAS doing something like this, correcting, and then a movement thing to the upside. So this is what I'm looking at on NAS100. So looking for buys of an area like this, stop loss right here. We're taking this all the way to 25,000. So that's it, 25,000. That's like a 1:9 right there. So let's keep this. Yeah, so this is what I'm looking at on NAS100. So if you get a better entry, you might get, let's say, 1:10, 1:11 on a swing move like this on NAS100. So wait for these sales to come to an end. You get a violation, just get a retest, and you're looking for your buy. So that is it for me on NAS100. It's very easy. So it's easy, but I've taken 3 losses. So that's a funny thing. And again, it's completely fine. I'm just gonna sit on my hands and wait for price to give me another opportunity, and I'll look for the buying opportunity again. So that's my analysis on NAS100. So let's look at the S&P 500. Alright guys, so here's the S&P 500 on the daily time frame, and I took lots of time on NAS100, so I'm not gonna spend so much time on the S&P 500, because when you look at what's happening on NAS100, it's always easy for you to trade the S&P 500, or you look at what's happening on the S&P 500 and it's easy for you to trade NAS100. So what is the structure we're dealing with? And is there a trend line we can work with? Is there a psychological level we can work with? We've had certain violations on this pair. So just looking at this. So let's step to the weekly time frame just so it's easy to look at the structure thing. So here's a structure I'm looking at on the weekly time frame right here. You have your impulse thing, you had a correction, you had an impulse, you had a correction, then you had the buys, then you had a violation. So looking at this from the weekly time frame, or from time frames like the daily, which I can step back to the daily, looking at it from these time frames, you can tell price is moving to the upside. Now a violation like this doesn't mean price is headed to the downside. It simply means price is giving you a temporal or a brief break or a pause, and for price to move again to the upside. And it's the same thing I showed you on NAS100. I'm going to show you on the S&P 500. If you look at this piece right here, on lower time frames, price was making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Then you had a violation. It happens a lot on indices. So once you have a violation like this, it's just a pause, price is coming back to get better prices, get a better discount. And then you can see prices moving again to the upside. That's your next swing. It gives you the same thing, higher highs, higher lows. You get a violation, it looks deeper, and price gives you another swing. So if you have this in mind, if you know this is how price has been moving, or this is how price moves on these pairs, so you get a swing, pull back, there's a violation. What you're looking at right here is just a bigger picture thing. Price is moving to the upside. So what you're expecting here is this pullback thing. It's a pause, it's a temporal sell, and for price to then continue its movement to the upside. So if price starts moving to the upside, where am I expecting prices to get to? The next level and the next high has to be 6,500. So I'm not just looking at an area like this, I'm looking at 6,500, because if price then moves, like if we get this intention from the buyers to move to the upside, we're looking at massive movement in this. So we're taking out this area, we're taking out this psychological level, and we're headed to 6500. So that's my analysis right there, just looking at it from higher time frames like the daily time frame. Now, how do you get involved in a situation like this? So looking at the S&P compared to NAS100, NAS100 is playing out from a very crucial point. So you have a trend line thing right here, you have a trend line, you have a psychological level. So these two things right here is very vital when you look at the price and you're just looking at this minor movement to the downside as a pullback. You're waiting for this break consolidation so you can take prices to the upside. On the other hand, when you look at the S&P 500, you have a proper break out of this trend line. So in a situation like this, you might see price coming back to test 6,000 and you might see some consolidation before the movement thing to the upside. So that's one variation you can look at once you're looking at the S&P and NAS100. So this is something I'll pay attention to. So if you're trading NAS and you're trading the S&P, for some reason one pair might have, let's say, a consolidation, or one pair might just move really fast compared to the other one, and that's the reason, because on this pair you have a proper break, you have a proper violation compared to NAS, and price is trading below 6,000. So you see there's just a possibility price can get to 5,500. So looking at the S&P 500 compared to NAS, I think NAS100 for me looks like the better pair to trade compared to the S&P 500. But again, if I see a good position on NAS100, I will use that as a shield and trade the S&P 500 as well. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? You need to remember what's happening on the DXY. This guy needs to move to the upside, giving us the sells to the downside. If we see something like this, then you can head over to the S&P 500. Now this movement thing right here, price is just moving to the downside. Now you can't see this on the daily time frame, but if you step down to the 8-hour time frame, okay, I didn't take this one. This is the S&P 500. So that's what I was looking at, this position on the S&P 500 as well when I took the buys on NAS100. But just because of what, like the price structure and everything, if you compare this to NAS100, I had a trend line, I had certain things that was supporting the price, but the S&P one, it didn't really support that. So we'll take this out from the S&P. So the same thing. So there's a trend line you can use right here, and price is just coming to the downside. So all you have to do is wait for these sellers to complete. So once you see a completion of this movement thing, you want to see this inability for prices to go through, break. As you get a test, you're expecting prices to move to the upside thing. So something like that. That's what you're looking at. So this is what you're looking on NAS now on the S&P 500. So something like this. So if you had to trade the S&P 500 thing, so just like NAS100, you're waiting for prices to come back to an area like this, and you're looking for buys off of an area like this, same thing, 6,500, and that's a swing move thing on the S&P 500. So looking at this compared to NAS100, it might be a little bit tricky, as I told you. So you might see some consolidations on certain things, but just going off of like these principles, where is price at, where is price headed to, what is the bigger picture thing? Or let's say you might even, so if you're not really confident with this position on the S&P, you might decide to cap this on this, like at this highs right here, and that's still, let's say 1:5.56%. So which is still okay. So let's keep the S&P at an area like this because of what's happening on the S&P 500. So this is what I'll be looking at the S&P 500. And if you realize I haven't looked at lower time frames like the 4 hours and the hourly, because when you look at the daily time frame, you're having a violation of this area on the daily time frame, which tells you need to start looking at the weekly time frame, and you need to start looking at the monthly time frame, because for price to give you, like, let's say a violation on the daily time frame, it means you need to pay attention to higher time frames. So let's put this on the monthly time frame thing right here. So when you look at this, the violation on the daily time frame is very vital, because if the daily time frame is your highest time frame you're looking at, and you get a violation of a trend line on the daily time frame, what you could see on lower time frames, what you could see on higher time frames. So you're looking at this violation, you see price coming back here, testing these highs and inability, and then you get a drop. And that's why I like looking at higher time frames as well, because higher time frames is just going to tell you what's happening on the bigger scale, like the bigger picture thing. So there's still a possibility we could see the S&P crashing, like it can crash crazily. So we can look at those buys and everything on this day, on like the daily time frame, the 8-hour time frame, 4 hours and stuff like that. But an inability of prices to go through those highs, you're expecting this crash thing. So let's step back to the daily and I'll show you. So I'll keep this on the monthly thing, take this out. Yeah, so this is what we're looking at on this pair. So when you see, let's say, the difficulty, the inability for these pairs to start buying on the daily time frame, once you see a violation of this trend line on the daily time frame, pay attention now what's happening on the weekly time frame. Because if you have a daily trend line that's violated, so you see a violation on the daily trend line, you need to ask yourself, is price trying to deliver? Is price trying to deliver to this higher time frame, which is what's happening on the monthly time frame? Because this is a possibility as well. And so once you start taking losses from what you normally take wins from, look at higher time frames, because then price might be delivering to higher time frames and you're stuck on this lower time frame just looking at it, and you're not seeing it, you're not seeing the bigger picture thing. So there's also a possibility we might see price pulling back and selling aggressively all the way to 5,500, 5,000, 4,500, up until we get, let's say, to this trend line thing. So that's a possibility as well, but it's gonna take time. So while waiting for this to happen, I'll stay with what's happening on the daily time frame, and this is what I'm looking at on this time frame. So if we see buyers coming in and there's an inability for the buyers to take out these highs, so let's say we see these buyers coming in, an inability for buyers to take out these highs, then we're selling all the way to 5,500. The next level after 5,500, you're looking at 5,000. The next level after that, you're looking at 4,500, and so on. So that's my analysis on the S&P 500. Keep it really simple. Look at this on the 8-hour time frame. Wait for this price to break out, get a retest, and that's it. Very simple. You look at the buying opportunity again to the upside. So that's my analysis on the S&P 500, and let's look at the last pair for today. Alright guys, so the last one is gold, and this is on the daily time frame. I'm just going to show you guys like really quick what I was looking at on. So this right here is what I was looking on the hourly. So remember, I said this already, I had my entries right here. I was expecting this sells all the way to an area like this, so I can take the buys to the upside, so we can test 3,000. So this didn't happen. So let's look at the daily time frame and just understand what's happening. So I need to zoom out again, so I'll look at the weekly just so we can have a proper look of what's happening. Alright guys, so look at this on the weekly time frame. So we've been on this bullish run, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction. There's an impulse, so normally you should wait for a correction so you can look at price moving again to the upside. So what psychological levels are you working with? You have 3,000, you have 2,500. So looking at this on the daily time frame, it's a little bit tricky, because I want you to pay attention to this. So remember, when you have price moving to the upside, giving you, let's say, an impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction, a violation doesn't mean sellers are coming in. Once you get a violation, you can get a pause. So you get a violation, you see price pausing, and then you see further move to the upside. Within this movement to the upside, you have price giving you higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Violation, it doesn't mean we're selling aggressively to the downside. If for any reason I was looking for sales just to an area like this, so we can then take prices all the way to 3,000. So price moves like, let's say, it's like a copy and paste thing. So it's just gonna do the same thing every now and then. And sometimes it's really difficult for you to get the timing correctly. Sometimes it's difficult for you to get the entries and stuff like that. But the same thing I've been explaining is the same thing I'm looking at on gold. So it's just how price moves, it's price action. This has nothing to do with like the levels and anything. And if for any reason the levels I'm looking at here, 3,000, 25,000, these are just targets for me, because if I take an entry thing, so let's say I'm selling, I want to hold this prices all the way to 2,500, and if I'm buying, I just want to hold the prices all the way to 3,000. So I'm just using the levels as targets for me and looking at price action within this psychological levels. So looking at this on the daily time frame, so where is price at? We're still very close to 3,000. We haven't tested 3,000, but I'm very sure we're gonna test 3,000. So I'm expecting buyers to come in. But personally, I was waiting for this temporal sales to come in. Then you can look at buy. So violation, temporal sales, then you can look at the buy. So I was expecting the same thing to happen here, just so we can take the buys on this pair. So looking at this on the daily time frame is really difficult for you to tell. So let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame. So you look at this on the 8-hour time frame and you see my game plan, and price came really close to my stop loss. It almost took me out. It didn't take me out, but there's a possibility this might just take me out once the market's open. So this was my game plan right here. I was looking for sales all the way to the downside, which is just a temporal move to get a better price, and not really expecting prices to go below this area, and then we can then see prices moving again to 3,000. So that was my game plan thing right there. So right now I'm going to take this off and just look at this. So there's certain areas price has to go through. So the first one is this high right here. Price has to take out this highs. If we need to move to the upside, price has to test 3,000. So once you start combining these things, it starts making lots of sense, like lots of sense to you. We had a violation thing right here. The violation doesn't mean price is headed to the downside. So yes, you might have temporal sales. It's very okay for you to get temporal sales, but an inability for these sellers to move to the downside, which is the same thing I was expecting on the DXY, you should then expect prices to move again to the upside. So you're looking at these highs, you're looking at the psychological level thing, and those are all possibilities. Those are all levels price can test, and those are all levels price can get to. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Now this might be really tricky because this is on the 8-hour time frame, and for gold I think I'll look at the 4-hour time frame. So looking at this on the 4-hour time frame, now it's very easy for you to say you're taking buys off of this area to the upside. It's also very possible because now price is giving you this highs, price is giving you this consolidation thing right here. So it's okay for you to look for buying opportunities off of an area like this. So what you can do, if price comes, let's say, so you're looking at this movement thing right here. So you have your consolidation thing right here, and price is moving to the upside. So if you're buying at the bottom of this range, that's perfectly fine. So let's say you was looking for buys off of an area like this. So you want to put your stop loss around here, and you headed all the way to an area like this. So if this is what you're looking at, that makes complete sense, and it's also a good possibility. I was just looking for temporal sales before the buy. So if I'm trying to get involved in a situation like this, I'm not going to buy from this area because I have a trade currently running. I'll wait for this to happen, wait for the pullback thing, and then you look for buys again to the upside. So this right here will be my game plan. So if I get stopped out on this, then I'm looking for buys off of an area like this. So just wait for the pullback thing to come in. And again, it's pretty straightforward, just a break like impulse correction thing. So it's not that difficult. So it's just understanding what price is doing and where price is headed to. So here's my game plan on gold. So this again is going to take time. If I get stopped out on this position right here, I'll wait for prices to move to the upside, testing these areas, giving us a pullback. So just an impulse correction thing, and then I'll look for buying opportunities all the way to 3,000. So I'm still heavy on the buys. If you look at US30, I'm still expecting this buys to the upside. You can get temporal sales here, but that's not my trade. You look at NAS100, I'm waiting for the impulse correction so I can get the buys. If you look at the S&P 500, I'm waiting for the impulse correction so I can take the buys. And on the DXY, I'm waiting for the impulse thing. I'm waiting for the correction because we have an impulse already. I'm waiting for the correction so we get the next impulse to the downside, so I can look for buying opportunities on gold, look for buying opportunities on US30, look for buying opportunities on NAS100, and look for buying opportunities on the S&P 500. And again, guys, I've had a series of losses on just NAS100 alone. Trying to trade NAS100 has really been difficult. I've taken a couple of losses, and you need to understand what you're looking at technically might not be what's happening fundamentally. So fundamentally, you might see something else happening and it's just appearing completely different on your charts. Like technically you're seeing something else and fundamentally it's a whole different story. Now the DXY is moving to the downside. You're expecting prices to move to the upside. Those prices are then moving to the downside, or they're just like pausing, like there's no movement thing, there's this consolidation. It's completely okay. The market has periods like this when everything looks like there's chaos and everything, and all you have to do is just navigate yourself through this period, and once everything aligns properly, you can start firing again like really hard and just trying to make up for the lost time. So here's my analysis on gold, US30, NAS100, and the S&P 500. I hope it makes sense. It's not the best when it comes to like my technicals because fundamentally everything is messed up. So there's a lot you're looking on the charts and it just makes it difficult for you to digest everything. So this is what I can do like with this week, and we'll see what happens during the week and everything. If we get opportunities, look for the same setups, look for the same patterns, trade the same thing, and wait for the outcome. So that's my analysis for this week. Make sure you watch the previous week's market focus as well, just so you can see my errors as well. You can see how my analysis didn't even hold through. You can see the losses I took, but then you also have the opportunity to see the corrections I'm trying to make and how I'm trying to bounce back. So that's it for this week's market focus. And as usual, stay patient with what you do and be consistent with your analysis and everything. See you during the next one. Bye for now.